Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, the place where we not only talk about what's going on in the gun world, but also how we're going to fix it together. And the content that we're going to wrap up this weekend is something that I saw this week that I've been having on the back burner, and I really wanted to address it with you because I'm about to dive into a clip on MSNBC, and the illustrious Lawrence O'Donnell, in his arrogance and condescension, decides to talk down to all of us about things like abortion, gun rights, the Supreme Court. But the whole point here is, this is a clip that's meant to attack the Supreme Court for their rulings on things like the Dobbs, which is the abortion decision, and the gun rights decision, which was the Bruen decision. And he brought on Sheldon Whitehouse, senator from Rhode Island on the Democratic side, the illustrious, amazing, incredibly dumb senator from Rhode Island. Everything that I'm about to show you is going to be linked in the description box below, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think. And of course, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. And with that, my brothers and sisters, I'm going to play the first little clip, then I'm going to remind you of who Sheldon Whitehouse is, and then I'm going to play the last one. Okay, there's 3 clips here. This is crucial to understand because they're going after SCOTUS. They're using gun rights to do it, which means it's fair game. Let's get it.
So are most of the false facts predictive of what will happen if we rule a certain way, or are some of them actually false statements about things that have already occurred?
I think it's sort of, when you're constructing an opinion, it has a logical, analytical shape to it. And in order to get where the Supreme Court wants to go, they often have to fill in facts that justify and support the arguments and the logic of their decision. And what they don't do is follow the rules, which are, you should look at the congressional record for facts that Congress found if you're evaluating the support for a statute, or you should look at the judicial facts that trial courts found if you're looking at the facts that support a judicial decision, which...
All right, so in their most recent attack in this clip on the SCOTUS, they're saying that the Supreme Court makes up facts to support a predetermined outcome for a judicial decision. Does that sound vaguely familiar to anything that we say a whole lot on this channel when you and I have this conversation? Because the left, in their gun-controlling courts, places like the Ninth Circuit, sometimes the Second Circuit, all these places that do mental gymnastics in order to achieve gun control through some backdoor contrived way, that's perfectly fine. That's common sense. That is not bad at all. But when the Supreme Court does something that we don't like, oh, nay, 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 that is not acceptable because you can't have a determined outcome and then back it into with facts. Let me just remind you, just top of my head, in the Oregon Measure 114 deal with the federal lawsuit, the court actually found there that they could not restrict Measure 114 because it was perfectly constitutional to put a fee in front of your ownership of guns, to put a mandated ban of certain items, to do all of these things, but it was perfectly fine because it supported the Second Amendment. Because after all, the Second Amendment is, it was... This is literally what the left does. Now, that's the first clip. Let me show you that the irony and hypocrisy was staggering to me, which is why I went with this. Let me remind you who Sheldon Whitehouse is. This is the senator from Rhode Island. This is something that he did in the fall in a gun media. Really, this was like a dog and pony show. But anyway, this is what he said about muskets and AR-15s.
And not to belabor the point too much, but have you ever witnessed multiple injuries by musket, which was the firearm of choice at the time the Second Amendment was drafted?
I don't know that I've ever seen a musket wound.
Yeah. And I think the founders may well have had enough common sense to understand that in the time it takes to reload a musket, if somebody were going berserk in a tavern or at a musical performance, there'd be plenty of time to intervene, and that something categorically different takes place when an individual has access to weapons that either are or can be configured to fire rapid fire and to fire ammunition of an entirely different and more destructive nature because of the speed with which the projectile flies. So
that's right. The guy telling us that the Supreme Court was dumb for making the wrong decisions around guns, which we're about to get to in a second, is just to remind you, muskets are less powerful than AR-15s. And he's asking sitting doctors and witnesses on the gun control side in that hearing, have you ever seen multiple gunshot wound by musket? You know what else we don't see a lot of anymore? Scurvy. Weird. Anyway, let me show you the last clip, because this is where it all comes down, because they bring in the gun decision. Listen to this.
What they just did in Dobbs and in Bruen, the anti-choice and pro-gun decisions, was to say we're going to completely renovate the way we look at the law in these areas, and we're going to look instead at history and tradition, which means we get to make up our own facts about what history is and what tradition says. And that's why historians had such a field day making fun of the false historical facts that they found in those decisions. So it's a very broad pattern in the Supreme Court's political decision making.
You know, it's funny, people, because I can almost hear you screaming through the camera. This is the same party that is instructing the ATF to take away gun rights through either ghost guns, frame receivers, pistol braces, XYZ, selling your guns, your own property to other people. And then their argument to satisfy history and tradition has been racism. The ATF, the DOJ, Elizabeth Salazar, Preligar, who is the Solicitor General. Elizabeth Preligar ordered it. It's on record. She basically defended the idea that there's history, text, and tradition, saying that because, well, we discriminate against Protestants and Native Americans and Catholics at different times, so it's perfectly fine. You can look it up. You can watch my older videos. But genuinely, this is the guy saying that the Dobbs decision, which is the anti-choice, which is not what it was is states decide, whatever. And then the gun one, which is the Bruen decision, where they said history, text, and tradition. Now, they didn't mention a word about history, text, and tradition in the Dobbs ruling. They just want to tie this together. In fact, it's a setup for Lawrence O'Donnell on another clip, which I'll probably cover tomorrow, which is equally disgusting and gross. But the entire point here is they are trying to decry the fact that a judicial nominee or a judicial panel or court, in their view, would have an indeterminate outcome and then back into it with facts. Meanwhile, on the gun control side of the aisle, that's all they do because it is not supported in the Second Amendment of the Constitution whatsoever, but it's perfectly fine for them. Now we're going to yell at the Supreme Court for something that I perceive. Guys, it hurts. It hurts, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm Braden. See you later.